And welcome back to Astro Self Care Sunday. I am Kenya, and I'm so glad that you decided to tune in, particularly today, because the sign we're going to talk about today, Scorpio. So, all right. So, the reason why I'm all glimmery and happy and is because my sun sign is Scorpio. And so I'm very passionate, obviously, about this sign. And so I hope that this next 25 minutes or so, you too will be just as passionate about wherever Scorpio sits in your chart. So if you are new to this series, if you're new to my channel, welcome. Hey girl, hey guy, hey, how y'all doing? Um, Make sure you are subscribed. We are slowly but surely getting the new subscribers. My goal has been to hit the 1K. God, please help me hit the 1K. So hit subscribe and then also hit the bell so that you can get notified when these videos are dropped every Sunday. Okay. So welcome. If you're already a regular, you already subscribe, you're already in the mix, you're waiting and you've been wanting to hear about Scorpio, welcome back. It's good to have you. Make sure you are sharing these videos. Make sure you are commenting if you have questions and all the things. All right. So, the way that this works, as y'all know who've been tuning in, what I typically do is I talk about some of the more important traits and characteristics of whatever sign we are featuring for the Sunday. And I talk about the high vibration, meaning the really positive, productive, lovely things about that particular zodiac sign. And then we go into the low vibration, the things that can happen. A lot of times, a lot of the stereotypes are built upon these aspects, but they're important to understand the low vibration so that you can understand the context of why it exists that way. Low vibration meaning also that it's not very productive, and usually, really, that low vibration, the soul is wanting you to grow and utilize some of your other astrological energies to balance that out a bit. Okay. And to be going towards your purpose, right? And to be really tapping into the inner you and your truth and your authenticity. And that will hopefully raise the vibration to the higher frequency of that. So we're talking about Scorpio. So if Scorpio is your sun sign, your moon sign, or your rising, you especially want to be really listening today, okay? Because whatever your sun, your moon, and your rising is, that is the more dominant astrological presence that you show, that you demonstrate, that you connect to, that you vibrate in. But again, we all have every single sign in us. Okay. So we're very dynamic as humans. That's what I love so much about astrology. It really helps to better understand these different layers that we have. And when you really start to study the astrology, it really literally is like a blueprint. It gives you a guide of where to go, of how to approach the challenges, how to approach and lend your gifts, how to look at relationships, things that you can take responsibility for, things that you can become aware of, what you may tend to draw in, all of that. It's literally like a blueprint. It truly is. And so if you're like, really? What? And you want to know more about your own chart or how your blueprint looks, then that's when I encourage you to book a session with me. You can do a free discovery call if you just are a little bit questionable exactly what does all that mean. I do what's called astrology guidance readings. So of coaching involved. There's a bit of guidance involved. My master's is in counseling. I'm an assistant professor at a university. And so I do kind of take things a little bit more from an academic lens. My Sagittarius is in Mercury. My Mercury is Sagittarius. When we get to Sagittarius next week, I'll explain a little bit more why I even said that. But yeah, we can connect and we can talk more. Okay. And I can help guide you through. So if you just go in the description, you should be able to see a link where you can either just straight on book a session, and we are now our sessions are now just $99 for a full reading. You can do a 2-for-1 where you pay 175 and you get 2 readings. And I like the 2 readings because most people end up doing a second reading anyway because you get so much rich information you want to follow up. And then those who really want a regular kind of connect with me to really kind of go through the chart a little bit deeper, then I have ways and memberships that you can join that become way more cost effective. So all of that we can talk about in Discovery Call, or you can just go to the website that you see in the description, findingyourvoiceafter40.com. Okay. All right, let's get into Scorpio. So, as I said, my sun sign is Scorpio. So, all these things I'm going to talk about today very much connect to me. Okay. So, I always keep my notes so I can stay on track and so we can be done within hopefully less than 30 minutes. That's always my goal. So far, I've been able to do it. So, with my notes, I want to make sure I stay on task because I could go on and on about Scorpio. I love me some Scorpio, right? So the motto or the mantra for Scorpio is I desire. Ah, that already tells you. I desire. Not I want, not I'd like, but I desire, right? So there's a certain intensity already, right? In the word of desire. And so if you can remember, Scorpio, out of all of the zodiac signs, is the most intense. It has the most intense energy. So we all have Scorpio in us. And so wherever it's sitting, whatever house or over whatever part, house just really just means what part of your life, but whatever house or part of your life the Scorpio sits, there's a certain level of intensity in that aspect. So my sun sign, where I shine, is intensity and desire. Okay. So the dates for Scorpio kind of wavers pretty much October the 23rd to November 21st. If you're on October 22nd, Scorpio, it just depends on what time of day you were born that will carry you over into that. So that's a very cuspy date. And then for Sagittarian, it's November 22nd in most spaces. But again, depending on the time, it could shift, and the year in which you were born, it could shift, the sign. But traditionally, Scorpio, October 23rd to November 21st. The symbol, scorpion, duh, eagle, phoenix. Already we're talking intensity, right? All right. Those symbols alone are very intense. Okay. Element is water, and it's fixed water. And I think this is super important because I think sometimes people believe that Scorpio, they're like, are you sure Scorpio's a water sign? Because water is supposed to be emotions and feeling. And it's like, oh yes, baby. We fixed water. So what is fixed water? Ice. What does ice do? It penetrates all the way down, right? An icicle, an ice glacier. And I always use this example for people to understand, if you think of an ice glacier, right? You only see the tip, but there's a lot more going down below. And that's important for you to remember about Scorpio energy. What you are seeing is just a glimpse, which is why it may not feel as warm and cuddly, right? Because it's a fixed sign. A lot of the emotion is very down, deep rooted, and even suppressed in a lower frequency. Okay. Modality, like I said, is the fixed. The quality is it's a feminine energy because your water signs and your earth signs are considered feminine energy. Remember, feminine does not mean female, feminine means inward, receiving. Okay. The ruling planet, it's actually traditionally ruled by Mars, but it's also kind of a co-ruler with Pluto. Pluto is a more modern planet because they found it later, but Pluto is also associated with Scorpio, two of the very most intense signs of the zodiac, right? The ruling house, it rules over the eighth house, and the eighth house is a very complicated, I think it can be a hard to completely understand house in astrology. It's one of the harder ones, but it's ruled by Scorpio, and that's why, because it's interested in the Scorpion energies. And so a lot of times when you look up what is eighth house, it says mental health, exchange of resources, transformation, birth, death. Those are all the things that are associated with Scorpio, and Scorpio is opposite to Taurus. Okay, all right. So high frequency, what are some what are the great things we love about Scorpio energy and what you want to celebrate in yourself and what you want to understand in your own chart so you can utilize, because Scorpio is very powerful, super, super powerful. And so we all have it. Mine sits in my sun, so it's a bit more where I radiate, where I shine. Mine's in my fifth house, which is the house of creativity and romance and pleasure and so forth. So that's more of where it shows up for me. But you want to find, this is why you want to do a reading. You want to find where yours sits so that you can utilize it, okay, and nurture it. So, high frequency, a need to feel secure from external threats. This is super duper important. Scorpio moon, Scorpio rising, Scorpio sun, particularly that Scorpio moon, because again, our moon is associated with our emotions and our body and our needs. So, people who have Scorpio in their moon that need to feel secure from threats, not just secure, but from the possibility of harm. Okay, there's an extreme need of that. The ability to tap into hidden and internal resources. That's a really beautiful high frequency thing, is that Scorpio energy has, because of its depth, because of its intensity, it has easy access to be able to really get into things not so much seen. Scorpio is known as a little bit more of a psychic energy, okay, a very intuitive energy because it's tapping in deep. So remember, it's a fixed water. Water is emotion. It's going deep. That's why you're getting that energy. A very ambitious energy. Anytime you're going with that amount of depth, you're taking that amount of risk to understand things that may not always be obvious. There has to be a level of ambition going there. An awareness of the darkness or the shadow. I find that people who have Scorpio in their type 3, it's not uncommon for them to be therapists, for them to be healers, spiritualists, in mystic areas, all of those things because of the level of depth, even into health in general, healthcare in general, wanting that need to go deeper than what we may see symptomatically. Okay, so beyond the surface. Bold, calculated, charismatic. The emotions are very concentrated. So, not like the Cancer where it's initiating kind of the emotions and the relationship through the emotions. It's more, it's that fixed emotion. So, it's to be in a relationship with Scorpio top three, with someone who has Scorpio as a sun, moon, or rising, is to experience definitely a sense of loyalty and deep types of connection. And that's just simply how it is wired. Okay. Um, Very much in wanting a sense of control, especially over destiny, because again, not wanting to, not wanting, but wanting to feel secure from the threats. Emotionally driven, so driven kind of a little bit more by those deep emotions. Extremely empathetic and empathic, being able to really, really kind of sense what people are experiencing without them necessarily saying the words. I think that's why those who have a Scorpio in their top 3, like myself, doing counseling, doing therapy, even doing readings is going to come way more naturally because you're just more wired through that. Your energy decoders really can pick up on vibrations. Okay, so I go on and on. There's a lot more because y'all know I love me some Scorpio because that's kind of what I am. Anyway, but now let's talk about the low vibration. Okay, now when you have this kind of depth, when you have this kind of power and this quiet kind of power, if you are not putting it in healthy spaces, if you are not doing the self-care, which I'm going to get ready to get into, Scorpio energy can be extremely manipulative energy, one that can kind of twist, control, and do it in a very covert kind of way. Because again, we're going beneath the surface, right? We're not trying a Scorpio, and this is why the Scorpio, they'll say vengeful or whatever. And it's not so much that it's not okay, I'm trying to be vengeful. That's not so much what it is. The issue is I need to feel again secure. And my security is most felt when there's a sense of control. So, but I'm not going to do this in an overt way because it's just not wired to do it that way. trying to get to the root of things. So if a Scorpio is not careful, they can be extremely manipulative and maybe not even be aware that that's what's happening, because again, they're seeking a sense of security. And all of us are seeking a sense of security. And depending on how we are wired, if we are not articulating our needs, if we are not really taking care of ourselves in a way that is very authentic, then we'll go behind the scenes to try to get the needs met, right? So for Scorpio, that shows up as a more manipulative and even compulsive type of energy, and very covert, crafty. Can be crude, can be very distrustful because again of that need, and very domineering because again it's wanting to have the control. But again, the control is not in the just the sense of I'm just trying to be a controller or I'm just narcissistic. It's not as simple as that for Scorpio energy. It's much more because there is an internal need and a very strong need to feel a sense of security, particularly as it relates to threats. Okay, may carry a lot of emotional baggage as a result because again it's fixed, and oftentimes Scorpio energy, if they're not aware that they're doing all of this, they just store it. They'll store it, store it, store it, store it. Okay. And that now becomes emotional baggage that you're carrying into different relationships, different situations. So it's really careful. It's very important. And Scorpios need to be very careful of making sure they're taking care of this energy because it's intense. And wherever Scorpio sits in your chart, if it sits in the area of career for you, if it sits in the area of communication or health or whatever, you just be aware that's these factors I'm saying is where that might be showing up in your life. Can be even a little bit obsessive and emotionally can feel a sense of emotional burden because the Scorpio energy is so intuitive. So, it may not be fully aware how the impact is landing on others, but typically Scorpios are very aware of the power they have. And a lot of times not really sure exactly how to utilize the power in a way that serves, both parties sometimes. Okay. And therefore then can be opportunistic and overbearing and so forth. So Scorpio, there's a lot. So let's get into how we can do some self-care, right? To help the Scorpio energy out, because there is a lot. All right. So I'm going to read this to you here. Okay. Scorpios are known for their intensity, passion, and depth. When it comes to self care practices for Scorpio zodiac energy, it's important to focus on activities that promote emotional healing, self discovery, and allow for moments of solitude. Okay, so those are so all of these things that I'm going to say are centered around those three main points: emotional healing, self discovery, solitude. All right. To allow a Scorpio to process their thoughts, to allow a Scorpio to have some alone time and kind of be on their own a bit, and to allow a Scorpio to go through practices that involve deep emotional healing is to love a Scorpio. Okay, because that's what's really self care for them. So, deep reflection, okay, spending time in introspection is a very critical part of the self care for a Scorpio. So, creating the space that you can do that. Doing journaling, because what journaling can afford is allow you to be really connected to the thoughts that you're having, really connected to what you're experiencing, what you're feeling. I think those who have Scorpio have Mercury Scorpio, because that's your thinking, right? They're thinking on that level there. It's important to really be spending time with that deep reflection so that you're able to moderate that and not go into the lower frequency. Meditation and mindfulness, absolutely. It cultivates a certain level of inner peace so that as you're dealing with these different empathic, powers that you have, you can not absorb it all and hold it all, but you can kind of release and feel free and gain some peace in it. Doing empowerment activities, because this is the thing for a Scorpio who is in a lull, they'll really fall into that manipulative because Scorpio has power, right? So it needs to be doing activities that allow it to exercise its power without causing harm or issues toward others, right? So to feel a sense of control, this can be literally from physical, like martial arts and even, some type of strength training, because again, that physicality is a very, there's a lot of power that has to happen in the physicality of those activities, right? So empowering activities, or if it's not physical, doing those things that allow you to feel your more powerful self. All right. Creative expression is very important for the Scorpio energy, because again, it creates an outlet for those deep emotions. So if I'm having deep emotions that I'm not really feeling comfortable or safe articulating, maybe I'm doing it within the arts. So it gets out and it's the art that's representing the intensity as opposed to coming from me. Um, Doing some type of transformative reading, like personal growth and development. It's so funny. My books, like all my books I read, are all psychology. I'm listening to podcasts all day that are going into the depths of the soul. I'm like, I love it. Right. And then I mention to somebody else, they're like, what? Why are you? So what's going on The Bachelor? And I'm like, I can't watch The Bachelor. I need depth. Okay. And that's just how I'm wired. And I've accepted it. And I hope now that you hear me say this, you understand exactly why I'm so into astrology, right? Nature retreats, being able to, again, what's good about the nature retreat, other than just the obvious of connecting with nature, is the solitary or the solitude. Having again that alone time, which is, and obviously you can do that, in company with people, but being in one with nature, is doing solo walks or hikes or things like that is really comforting. Warm baths or water therapy. Remember, Scorpio is a water sign, and then having those warm baths and sitting and allowing the body to get into a calmness will allow you to connect a little bit deeper to whatever you're feeling emotionally. Doing any type of energy healing work like Reiki, acupuncture. Again, because of the intensity that Scorpio experiences, especially more beneath the surface, those energies allow to get a little bit more to the root of the energies, to the chakras of the energies, so that there can be a little bit more release. Counseling, absolutely counseling. I mean, I think everybody needs counseling, but I think for if you got Scorpio on the top three, because what counseling is not trying to tell you what to do. Okay, so there's not, you have more dominion and control, but you're being able to process on a very deep level as opposed to just storytelling. Okay, if you have especially if you have a really good therapist. I keep therapists on speed dial. Okay. Setting intentions, again, by setting that intention, now you can focus a bit more of the energy and the power toward the intention as opposed to having it scattered. And that then lends itself to boundaries and creating rituals. All of these things assist in shifting perspectives and allow you to connect on a deeper level, right? Self-care days, boundaries within that, because of the solitude factor, is really important. And the occult or spiritual exploration, really, Scorpio energy is just going to naturally lend itself toward the mystical. And that's why when people say, oh, mystical, that's bad, that's the devil, that just drives me so crazy, because when we put that type of label on things, then people start feeling fear in going in that direction, or they start feeling shame or guilt. And so now, if you have intense Scorpio energy, you just think you're a dark soul just walking around, right? When in fact, it's not that you're this dark evil. No. What it is that Scorpio rules over the energy of death and rebirth. And death, again, doesn't mean what we think it just means bad and all. What death is, a loss, but it's the loss is making room for the regeneration. It's making room for the rebirth. It's making room for the transformation. It's clearing the plate. And Scorpio energy does that really beautifully. Scorpio energy has the ability. That's why the resilience is strong, because it's interested in allowing things to be let go in order to transform. Okay. So when you start to get more into these deeper studies spiritually, that's very gratifying for the Scorpio energy, because it makes a lot of sense because of the way that we're more wired. Okay. But it's not an evil or a bad. And I think we have to be very careful to put that judgment, because then Scorpio energy won't go and do that exploration, and it will just brood, and it will turn into the lower frequency, into the manipulation, into the covert, the um craftiness, the controlling, overbearing stuff. You don't want that. So it's important to have the space to utilize the power and that type of energy. Okay. Woo! I'm telling you, Scorpio is intense. It's intense. And so we just finished Scorpio season. We've hit Sagittarius. Yay. And you'll hear next week when I do Sagittarius. It's a completely different energy, completely different energy. In a lot of ways, not completely, but in a lot of ways. And I always say, listen, November, late October into November, but right before Thanksgiving, it's gonna be on because the sun is illuminating the Scorpio energy in those times because that's when Scorpio's in the sun sign. So the big thing take home for your self-care practices as we begin to wrap up. I am going to do the question of the day, but before I do the question of the day, just remember, Scorpios, tailor your self-care practices to align with that deep Scorpio energy, okay? So that you can embrace your intensity and your passion while also nurturing your well-being emotionally, okay? And hopefully then fostering growth. All right. So it's all right to be intense. You just need to take care of yourself, therefore, in an intense manner. A Scorpio sitting down just watching like a game show, that's not going to be self care for the Scorpio. I mean, that's numbing care, but it's not going to really get to the depth that is necessary in order to get the growth and the true well being that Scorpio energy is after. All right. So, what is our question of the day as we wrap up? As we begin to wrap up, let's put it up here. What sign is the moon in right now? And what does that even mean? All right. So at the time that this is coming out, our moon, as you're watching this, is in. Now, if you caught this a week after or even a few days after, the moon is somewhere else. But as of sun, because moon moves every 2.5 days or so. But the time that this is released on Sunday, December 3rd, the moon is in Leo. Now, I did a whole video on Leo, so go back on my page, find the Leo, and you'll see all the beautiful energy, high vibration, low vibration of Leo. But I wanted to be able to read to you because I also wrote this down, kind of so that you understand when the moon is in Leo, what you might be feeling. Now, again, this is very contingent on your moon sign, what position your moon is in, all the things. But in general, okay, in general, I'm gonna read this. Typically, you're gonna feel safe in moments when you can impress others and get praise and admiration because Leo wants to be seen. Yet, when you get into the spotlight, you may find yourself at a bit of a loss. Okay, that's the thing. That's it's kind of like if you remember the Wizard of Oz, when the lion is like, I'm the lion and I'm courageous and blah. And it's like, I'm actually a coward when you put me on the spotlight. Really don't make me actually really have to do this. Really. I know I said it and I wanted the attention, but I didn't really, really, really want to do it. That's what that is saying. Okay. And it says maybe you should admit your fear of criticism and your inability to accept criticism. So if that fear pops up and it's like you want it to be seen and then you're seen, you're like, oh, I don't really want to be seen. Then you have to start to think about what is this whole fear of criticism? Why do I get like this when someone is giving me maybe constructive criticism and how do I learn how to accept that differently? Okay. It is very important to accept feedback, obviously, and to be able to use constructive feedback for improvement. Got to be careful with that though, because sometimes, especially these days, a lot of people are not giving constructive feedback. But in those spaces where it's coming from loved ones, people who care about you, people who want the best for you, and they're able to articulate it to you in a loving way for your benefit, take a moment. And with the Leo being in the moon, you may be hard to take that moment. You may feel a little more like, nah, this is personal, that ain't constructive. It may feel like that. Okay. But in fact, the lesson that's trying to be taught is, can we learn how to be a little bit more in tune with our self-acceptance? Okay. All right. That is it for this week. We'll be back next week, next Sunday, with Sagittarius, because after all, we're in Sagittarian season now. The sun is in Sagittarius. If you are a Sagittarius sun, if you have it as a moon, if you have it as a rising, you really want to tune in Sagittarius. I think it's probably probably the fun funnest, is that a word? The more fun energies, hence why we're kicking off our holiday season in this more joyous time. So I'm excited to share that with you. All right, you guys be good. Enjoy your Sunday. Make sure you're taking care of yourselves. Make sure you're subscribed, and we will be back next Sunday. Take care. Bye.